Yo, it's Nero. This is my Grace Top guide. We'll go over playstyles, runes, builds, and matchups. Any questions, just leave them in the comments. Alright, so we got PTA. Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Last Stand. Last Stand, Cut Down are interchangeable, as well as Bloodline and Alacrity. So if you have too much lifesteal and you feel like you need more attack speed, you can go Alacrity. And if you're playing against tanks, you can go Cut Down. The reason why I go Last Stand most of the times though is because it pairs really well with Shield Bow. Once it's procced, you get the extra AD buff. In Triumph, as you can see in this situation, if I was to kill Pike here, and Vlad was still contesting me, I can get the extra HP to kill Vladimir as well. So it's essentially like a little snowball effect, hence why I feel it's really useful. But Presence of Mind is really good. If you struggle with mana issues, and you need more mana throughout the lane because you're spamming Q and shit, then, you know, there's nothing wrong with Presence of Mind. But yeah, that's it for the most part. Alright, so we've got the secondary runes. We've got Bone Plating and Overgrowth. Overgrowth for the mid-late game HP. Bone Plating for the short trades and laning phase. Helps you a lot, makes you a lot beefy. And Bone Plating synergizes with PTA because of the short trades that you can pull off and take minimum damage. But yeah, you need Overgrowth so that you don't get bursted too easily. So that's why I go those two runes for the most part. Right now I've been trying sorcery runes though, so I go Gathering Storm and Absolute Focus. The AD that you get from this is crazy. Like, at least 30 minutes into the game, you get at least like 50 AD or some shit like that. It's fucking crazy. Shit's amount of damage. The mini runes, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and MR or Armor, interchangeable, depends on the matchup, really. Last Stand you can change up with Cut Down. Obviously if you're playing against a tank, Cut Down. If not, then you can just keep Last Stand. Last Stand goes really well with the Shield Bow as well, because once Shield Bow is procced, you're low HP, you deal more damage when you're low HP. Yeah, you just get a good AD boost. It's like a fucking steroid. But that's it for PTA though. In the following video we'll show you the combos that I genuinely use with PTA, and it's what provides the pressure and gets them killed, you know what I mean? Gets me on Synapse and that. Respect. Alright, so here are the combos that I use for PTA Graves. So you have basically two parts in this combo. One of them is when you already have one stack. So as you can hear, like you see here, auto, 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 bam, easy. Then the second part is where you already have two stacks and you play off the one stack left to get the burst damage off. So here's auto, then a Q, auto, E, auto. And then here I think I do two stacks here. So two stacks is burst damage, bang. You know what I mean? Shit tons of fucking damage. You want to do that when you're trying to kill someone, you know what I mean? Don't fucking waste it. So you got two stacks there, and then simple shit, bang. So much fucking damage, man. So make sure you save that when you're about to kill someone. Don't waste it, obviously, because you waste a fucking summoner. But yeah, those are the combos I generally use. You can mix and match shit ton. I kind of like theorize my shit while I'm fighting, you know what I mean? I don't really like plan what I'm fucking gonna do. It's just, oh, okay, let's just do this because it suits the situation, you know what I mean? So if you watch more of my streams or watch some more content, you'll get what I'm talking about. But they are the most common like combos you can use to PTA to surprise your opponent, basically. Right, so here we got Fleet. Fleet's a really good rune. It helps with the sustain, helps with movement speed, and you do get a little bit of damage. The reason why I don't go Fleet though is because I feel like I do a lot less damage than PTA, and it just feels really awkward. Especially when you want to get some powerful like short trades in. I feel like I get more of that out of PTA than I do with Fleet. With that being said though, Fleet is still a really good rune for team fights, as it helps with the sustain, his damage, and his movement speed. It keeps him mobile, and he's still able to dish out damage. If you're just getting started with playing Grace Top, definitely play Fleet. Another room that I've been trying at the moment is Conquerors. I Want My Cigar actually recommended me to this. Conquerors is really good if you want the adaptive damage from it. You don't really want to play for the healing because it takes too long to stack, which is why Graves doesn't really use Conquerors. But I feel that with the AD that you gain from Conquerors, it can actually be a very useful rune. Of course, unlike Fleet, no movement speed, no healing. I would not go Conquerors if you're not confident in your trades or your spacing. Conquerors does not reward you if you do not space properly in the laning phase, because if you get caught then you're pretty much going to die. With Conquerors you tend to be the aggressor in the laning phase, because obviously you want to get the first initial at least like 3-4 stacks before a fight occurs. So just itch in auto attacks here and there, but if not, I'd honestly just keep going Fleet. You'll always have the healing and the movement speed to keep you alive, so it's like a little backup plan with Fleet, but it's why I consider it one of the safest runes to go as Graves. I also go Conquerors with my Bruiser build, which I will explain later on, but it's essentially Bruiser Graves. The reason why I do this is because I feel like Graves can utilize Conquerors a lot better if he has more HP and more defense. So the build is basically a mix of damage, HP and armor, or magic resist, depends on the comp. And obviously he gets more AD the longer he is in the fight, and if he stacks it to 12, that's great, but honestly we're just playing around the AD buff, like I said, so that build will be showcased later on in the video. But yeah, I think Conquerors is still a decent rune. Alright, so here are the builds that I genuinely use. I pretty much use all of this apart from Eclipse, just because I'm not a big fan of Eclipse, but it's still a good mythic. I've heard a lot of people have a lot of success with it, so don't get me wrong, like, just because I don't use the mythic doesn't mean it's not a good build, you know what I mean? But starting off with the top one is the Bruiser build that I did mention. With Conquerors, it's Shieldbow, Black Cleaver, Death Dance, Wit's End, and Ravenous Hydra. So pretty much you can interchange Black Cleaver and Death Dance. It just depends on the game really. So like, if I'm playing against majority tanks, then I want to get Black Cleaver second, you know what I mean? Or if I'm hella ahead, then I can go Black Cleaver. Playing against a lot of Tabai users, or fucking Steel Cap, whatever the fuck you want to call it, Black Cleaver, you know what I mean? But if I want some resistances first, then I can start off with Death Dance or Wit's End, and then top that off with Ravenous Hydra. So basically the theory with this build for me is I like it because of the AoE shred that you get with Black Cleaver and Executioners, which I did mention earlier on in the video. So I feel like that's like insanely strong, especially mid-late game, and also if you have a lot of AD carries in your team. So if you have like a Yasuo or a Yone, topped off with like a strong ADC like Tristana, Sivir, Kai'Sa or some shit, and then you got fucking Kayn, like Black Cleaver, Ravenous Hydra, Executioners, dude. If you go against any bruiser that has a lot of like armor or healing, they just get cancelled out just from like one auto attack, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's insanely strong. So I put Executioners in the situational aisle, but genuinely you can build that with out with almost anything, you know. Second build is a standard crit build really. So you got Shieldbow, PD into Bloodthirsters. The gaps pretty much are situational items, as you can see on the far right next to the build itself. So you got Executioners, which honestly is mandatory nowadays. Every champion has healing, but you got Executioners, you got Death Dance, Infinity Edge. You also got Spirit Visage. Spirit Visage is there for the extra healing that you get with Bloodthirster, Shieldbow. Death Dance is there for just typical resistances. You don't tend to go Death Dance with these type of builds. When you go full crit, you want just to max out your fucking damage, you know what I mean? And Infinity Edge can be built alongside Bloodthirster, or it could be you could replace Bloodthirster with Infinity Edge. It's just a heavy hitter item in my opinion. I think it's really great. Similar with the third build, it's just a common build really. You go Shieldbow into Collector into Infinity Edge. This build hits fucking hard. It hits so hard. Collector second as well. It's just disgusting. If you're already ahead in lane, Collector second will just probably put you know what I mean. You're clotting people. It's so easy, man. The execution is just so nice, and it's still good against tanks too. LS did actually debunk that item and its usefulness against tanks because of the higher HP, so the higher health threshold to execute their HP a lot easier. And then you got Infinity Edge as well, which is just another item. I mean, you know, I mean, it's just a really strong item. Increases your pellets, you do more damage, etc. Honestly, I feel like when you go crit, it's kind of mandatory to have Infinity Edge just because of how like strong it is. But that's just my opinion though. And then last but not least is the more common, the Eclipse build. So you got Eclipse, Black Cleaver, and Essence Reaver, Immortal Reminder. I'm not really sure about the third item in this build. I've heard people go Sorrel Diaz, Collector, of course, well, the situational items there, so we got Infinity Edge, Serpent's Fang. That's what I would go personally, but I was just told to, I was told that Essence Reaver and Mortal Reminder were the third items in the build. I don't really know, I'm not very sure myself, but the build is there for you guys to try. It's a very common build. I'm pretty sure it's meta right now for Graves for the most part in like the jungle as well as like in the mid lane. But if I was to use that build, I think I'd rather go Sorrel Diaz or at least Collector instead. The armor pen would go fucking crazy, especially for top lane. The issue I have personally with this is just pretty much the fact that you build Serrated Dirk. And it could be an issue because if you're playing against tanks, especially some champions now where they build fucking Tabai Bramble like first two items, building Serrated Dirk can feel a bit underwhelming. and then you don't really get much out of the laning phase. And then pretty much from there, you're gonna have to farm until like your second item to at least get the armor pen off of its mythic passive. And then obviously if you build LDR or Black Cleaver, so I think you do spike hard on your second item, but I just prefer to go shield bow because in my opinion it's a lot safer mythic. The shield that it gives you, the lifesteal, the extra AD that it gives you when you proc the shield. I think it's overall a great item, honestly. I don't see a reason why to not go shield bow or to not rely on it even. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion. With that being said though, Eclipse is still a great mythic, don't get me wrong, you can still definitely use it. That's just my opinion, of course. Alright, so not gonna lie, about the Eclipse build, I didn't go with Essence Reaver and Mortal Reminder. I actually just kept going LDR and Collector often. But I played at least like 2 to 3 games with that build on my Diamond account, D2, D1. And I have to say, the build is actually kind of insane. Like, you do have to play a little bit careful because you don't have the shield with the shield bow. But honestly, if you pick and choose like your positioning and shit, and you just play around your Q, you can do a shit ton. Like, it's actually busted, man. I can't lie. But that video should be up soon. I played against Conq, and you know Conq, like, the champion's fucking busted top lane. You can't even kill that guy. You really just can't. You have to actually like play for jungle or just perma farm, and I got too cocky. I ended up dying a couple times, but I kept my farm high. I farmed up like 1 or 2 items, and as soon as I killed Conq, it just went up from there. I killed him 1 time. He went for a stupid dive, and then I just shit on him after. So yeah, I do rate the build. Honestly, I rate it highly. Unfortunately, I do think that hopefully not, but they might actually just nerf like Eclipse or some shit. I don't even know. It's just too insane. Like the fact that you build lethality and you get armor pin with it is just kind of crazy. It's not. I can't front, but we'll see. I do think it's a good build though, for sure. I do rate it highly. Alright, so the following video will be talking about how I play the lane pretty much. We'll try and go through the early, mid and late parts of the game. Mostly focus on the early and mid game though. The late game is pretty much just straightforward really. It's either you team fight and you win, and you win the game obviously, or you lose. Like, you know what I mean? But in terms of like the laning phase, I think that's generally the most important thing. And then how to function in the mid game, because that is something that I myself do struggle with. And even though I might have the right answers, it is hard to put into practice for me. So it'd be cool to talk about that as well. But yeah. Alright, so moving on to how to actually play the lane. So you have 2 options generally. One of the options is honestly just perma farming for the whole of the laning phase. This is obviously the most reliable way of playing Graves in the top lane. You just rely on yourself to farm up, get 9 to 10 CS per minute, or even 8's fine, obviously. And just to keep farm. Don't focus on trying to kill your enemy laner, and play for your items really. And obviously outside of the laning phase, you just spike really hard because of your items and shit. You're really fucking fed. You have tons of XP, tons of gold, all your items, 1 to 2 items. And then you can play off of that. And then your second option is obviously to play to kill. So the first option you can do against matchups that you just struggle with. So say if you struggle against Conq, for example. A good example because that champion is absolutely fucking dog shit. It's just horrendous to play against. Literally just farm, just queue up all the fucking waves, and just make sure to get the bounce back on the waves and play around that. And then obviously once you get your CS and your XP and shit, when it comes to team fights, you're insanely fucking fed, you're really fucking strong, and you get more value out of that than just trying to kill the enemy laner, and obviously failing, dying, losing XP, losing CS, it's just not worth it. So that's one thing that you can do. The second option is obviously against comfortable matchups. So say if I'm playing against Fiora or if I'm playing against Camille, and I know I can generally beat those matchups, that's when I'd go and play a little bit more aggressive. So of course you still want to keep your CS high, but the slight difference is honestly, you play more aggressive, you get more auto attacks in, you get more poking, you start looking for decent trades, and sure you might lose 1 or 2 CS in between, you know what I mean? But the goal is at the end is to kill the enemy laner, and then obviously profit off of that by making them lose CS and XP, shoving those waves, etc. So yeah, those are the 2 ways to play laning Graves. So Graves does a really bad job of evading ganks. You can imagine he doesn't really have great CC, and his movement speed's hella fucking low. Like without boots it's 340, which is kind of fucking piss awful. So of course, what you can do is honestly, if you don't see the jungler on the map, then just wait. Meaning, just keep shoving the fucking waves out and make sure you get the wave to bounce back. Prevent them from freezing. If you're low, you don't have to worry about them freezing the lane on you. But obviously, if they start managing their waves and they start trying to pull the wave in and shit, make sure they don't do that. You have to force a bounce back on the wave, otherwise the wave will just lock on near the turret, and you don't want that to fucking happen. That's because you're more prone to ganks, and obviously you don't want to be getting ganked as Graves, because you're forced to 2v1, and if you don't have the resources, like you don't have your ignite, you don't have your items, you didn't recall yet, or you're too low HP, then you're just gonna get fucked over. So don't fucking do that, obviously. So that's what you can do basically. Just wait until you see the jungler on the map, and if you don't see the jungler on the map, then don't fucking bother shoving. If you do see the jungler on the map, say he's on bot side, or he's just taking a camp on wolves or some shit, maybe then, sorry, wolves or raves or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Maybe then you can go for play a little bit aggressive. You can shove in the lane a little bit, go for a Q bounce on when they're under the turret, go for a couple auto attacks here and there. You can do that, and you play a lot more aggressive. So I tend to do this normally when I am like I mentioned before, the two ways of playing Graves. I normally do that on the second option, which is if I'm comfortable against the matchup, and I don't really worry about this in the first way of playing Graves, mainly because obviously regardless if the jungler's top side or bot side, I'm going to be shoving out the fucking wave anyways, you know. If you're getting camped and shit, then sure, obviously be wary, keep warding and shit, deep wards and all that, it always works, you know what I mean. That's just normal. But if you're playing safe and you're just playing to CS, just keep queuing the waves, max out your Q, get your auto attacks in, focus on the CS, obviously avoid getting ganked, and yeah. And also, I also recommend obviously to get boots as well, because it does help, it really does help. If you're comfortable against the matchups though, and you're confident in 2v1ing, what I also recommend is to slow push. So basically, last hit the minions, try and zone the enemy away from CS, and just keep last hitting the minions. Build up a good wave, and then once you build up a good wave, if the jungler ever comes to try and gank you, you have the wave on your side as well. And just fight within your minion wave, guys. Fight within your minion wave. It's so good when you do that. So good. They tank so many hits from the mage minions as well. It's actually it's so disgusting, and it's very underrated for whatever reason. If you're 2v1 and you always want to fight around your minion wave, it is your best teammate there. Alright, so now I'm going to get into team fights. So basically, right, if you have a frontline in your support, or if you have a frontline in your jungle, you can play a little bit like an ADC. So what I mean by this is just sitting back behind your frontline and just keep auto-attacking front to back. You play as like a second ADC, so you're always dishing out fucking damage. You're not forced to play recklessly. You know what I mean? Your life isn't always on the line when you're trying to kill an enemy fucking champion. This is the thing with Graves top, because he takes up a whole slot, which is 10 for bruisers or tanks that are actually just taking damage. It's kind of tricky, and that's why I always prefer if people were to just play mid lane instead of top lane, because it's a lot easier to just play around comps, if that makes sense, and drafting champions. But with that being said though, if you do have a frontline in your jungle or your support, you can still pull off a good ADC Graves from the top lane. So building crit is fine, even lethality is fine as well, but I definitely prefer crit if I had a frontline. If you don't have a frontline though, this is where it gets a little bit tricky as well. You kind of have to play front to back. If you go crit, you kind of have to play front to back. Especially if you're the only carry on the team. The issue with this though is obviously you have to play against the enemy carries too, which is a very very tricky thing, because obviously they can pick you off too. If they have a front line and they have a strong carry, you can be doomed. So you have to be like hella ahead, be really significant in team fights, and actually get your damage off before you die or some shit, you know what I mean? One thing you can do though is play to flank the enemy laners. What you can do is just not to confront them in the team fight, but to just wait until they use all their abilities and shit, and then come in to sweep up, or just simply just walk around and then dash through a wall or some shit, and then pick a Vayne off or a Caitlyn off or the enemy Zed off or some shit, you know what I mean, and just take them out that way. So that's the things that you can do. That's if you just don't have a front line to rely on whilst you're dealing damage, of course. So you have to pick and choose though, be careful, because if you're the only carrying your team, and your team's playing dog shit, you can't just carelessly go in for the enemy carry like that, because if you die, then the whole team dies, and then you lose your lead, and you lose your XP, and you're on the fucking death timer, and then they're taking Drake or Baron, you know what I mean? You're the player that keeps the team together, so be wary of that. But they're the main ways of like playing team fights. All in all, honestly, it just depends on how the game's going. There's no like strict way of playing Graves and team fights, and I know it's kind of like an awkward topic when it comes to Graves and team fights, because people do struggle with it. It is pretty awkward. The champion doesn't have the crazy range of an ADC to reliably play far back and deal damage, and he isn't really not strong enough, but he's not like, he doesn't have the armor or the HP, the crazy amount of sustain to frontline all the time, you know what I mean? Especially when they have Bramble or Executioners to slow down your sustain and your healing, to be a bruiser and to just constantly do damage on the front line. So it can be a tricky thing, but when you play more Graves, you start to understand how to fight the team fights, and you'll start to see certain opportunities where, oh, okay, maybe I should frontline here, but in this situation I could take out the carry there, you know what I mean? It's something that you have to get used to, but you'll get the hang of it. If you keep playing Graves, you'll get the hang of it for sure. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have any questions, of course, just leave it in the comments below, or just drop by on my stream whenever I'm live, twitch.tv/NeroZYN. I'm live almost every day, 2 PM GMT. Just drop a question if you have any, and I'll be happy to answer them, you know what I mean? It's cool. Obviously, I'm not going to mind helping people out or whatnot. But obviously, any references to runes or builds or whatever, try to come to this video first, if anything, just to backtrack. If you need to remind yourself for anything, and then, of course, ask me the questions just to save some time. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I struggle with explaining stuff. Like, I'm not the best person when it comes to explaining shit, I'm not gonna lie. So I hope this is enough. If not, of course, just let me know if I've missed anything. Like, I don't know what I could have missed, honestly, but we'll probably see after anyways. But yeah, thank you guys for watching as always. See you guys in the next video. Respect.